Howdy y'all, I hope you guys are all doing well, I hope you guys are safe, and I hope you guys are healthy. My name is Josh, and I absolutely love clothing and personal style, so if you're into that type of content, feel free to subscribe to me on YouTube as well as follow me on Instagram at where's_Galdo. I've mentioned it before in past videos and recent videos, but I have a lot of stuff. And I've been sifting through this stuff, trying to see what I can sell, what I can get rid of, to kind of thin my wardrobe a little bit, because I don't feel the need to have such a huge wardrobe. And it's proven to be really difficult for me to try and let go of certain items because I have meaning associated with certain clothing items, and that kind of sparked the idea for this video, and I just wanted to kind of explore exactly what it means for pieces of clothing to have meaning to a person, and where does that meaning come from. Now, this isn't really all-encompassing. This is mostly from what I've seen and what I've observed in my behaviors and behaviors of some of my friends. So let's get right into the video. So I've come to the realization that every piece of clothing you buy has some semblance of meaning. And what I mean by that is that there are two kind of primary parties here to take into consideration when thinking of the meaning of clothing. And first party is going to be the brand, the company, or the entity that puts out that clothing. And then the other party involved is going to be the consumer who buys that and who wears it. And I think there are two very distinct types of meaning that go into it. So right off the bat, let's talk about the brands. The brands, the companies, the entities that are putting out this clothing. And for the brands, meaning comes from what makes up the clothing item, and that can be the actual physical material itself, what makes it up, the design, the way it's put together, the graphics that go on a piece of clothing, maybe even the context within the brand messaging. There is a lot that goes into making pieces of clothing, and that to the brand is the kind of inherent meaning for the consumer. The consumer then sees these things and can pick and choose what they want to adopt into their wardrobe and basically use as an outward message. And I think the easiest way to contextualize this concept is like wearing graphic tees. Graphic tees a lot of times have a message, have a brand, have some sort of weight associated with what you're wearing. Say, even if it's something as simple as a Nike t-shirt. You have a Nike logo, there is a sportswear attitude associated with Nike, and that's the message that you're going to be putting out. I know it's like overcomplicating a super simple situation of just putting a shirt on, but in my mind, that's how this works. And I think in terms of say streetwear, Supreme is going to be the quintessential company that comes to mind when it comes to brand messaging and direct iconography, which is going to be their box logo. It is the easiest thing to associate with Supreme because it is simply just their logo on the chest. Supreme, obviously a skate brand, so people who are skaters will associate with it. People who are also art people can associate with it because the Supreme logo is depending on who you ask, a direct plagiarism or a parody of a different artist's design. The original artist was Barbara Kruger, who did the white lettering with red backing box, and Supreme took that idea, made it their logo, and it has stuck with them for decades now. So I specifically bring that example up because when you're buying a box logo, the meaning behind it is the parody or plagiarism of a form of another artist. You're also taking on the meaning of being associated with skaters. So I mean, all in all, in the most condensed form, the items that a brand produces carry the weight of design language and intent of messaging, which is then translated onto the consumer. Now, I really pride myself on trying to be a conscious spender, being aware of what I use my money for, and being very intentional with how I buy certain things. And clothing is a really big part of my life. I'm assuming if you're watching this video, it's also a pretty big part of your life as well. I like to be aware of the background and intent of a brand, and a lot of times I'm sold by a brand's story or ethos or processes of making clothing, and it makes me excited to wear those pieces of clothing. Just some of the brands that I'm just so enamored with, and the reasons why I'm enamored with the whimsicality of Capital, the ostentatiousness of Rick Owens, the pure dedication to heritage of Guidi, and the physical and aesthetic exclusivity of CCP are all qualities that fascinate me and just make me infatuated with certain brands. And that's just my associations with the brands. Then you get into the actual products that they produce, and that's a whole different story. Now, I've babbled on and on about companies and their intention for the clothing that they produce, but I think a really, really big portion of it, and I guess the phase 2 of this video, is going to be talking about the consumers, us, the people that buy the clothing, who then assign that clothing new meaning based off of our experience with the item or the context of the item, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So as consumers, we associate our clothing with memories, experiences, social context, self-expression, and I think one of like the biggest, most obvious examples of this, or I mean one that I guess a lot of people can relate to, is going to be like a wedding dress or a tuxedo. That's a piece of clothing that's only worn one time and hopefully represents probably one of the best moments in their lifetimes that a lot of people tend to keep in their closets and just keep it for the memories. And that's going to be the best example of consumer, because the consumer is the person who bought the dress, them assigning meaning to a piece of clothing and then them wanting to keep that piece of clothing forever for the nostalgia purposes. Now that's just one example. I definitely believe that life is experienced and remembered via a lot of the things that we wear. Another example of like clothing that has memories attached is going to be a varsity jacket. Say you were a athlete in high school or college and you had a varsity jacket, you associate your athletic moments in this jacket. Or also like uniforms, like maybe military service uniforms or job uniforms. That defines a certain aspect of your life that at one point you experienced. Now this part is where like artist merch, music merch, pop culture merch definitely pops in. Although not oftentimes made by any particular brand, the band, artist, or pop culture merch carry the weight of expressing the consumer's interests, thus diversifying the image of the consumer by dressing themselves in their own niche interests. And I'm talking about when people buy vintage band tees. I have a tendency to buy a lot, or I used to at least have a tendency to buy a lot of band tees, and I had a lot of memories associated with that. Actually, let me go grab one just so that I can show you guys some piece of clothing in this video. All right, so I have this gigantic IKEA bag. So this is something that I keep in my closet that are a lot of t-shirts that I don't want to get rid of, but at one point meant a lot to me and kind of still do mean a lot to me. And these are a lot of the band tees that I've accumulated throughout my time liking the music that I like. Just easy off the top. This shirt right here. This is a shirt from a band called Citizen. Love the band, still love the band, and this is a shirt that I got when they went on tour in 2014. Went to see them at Eagle Area Hall in Las Vegas, or actually in Henderson. I love this shirt so much. This means so much to me because it's associated with a time that I went out to a concert, and so I could never let this shirt go. It is one of my favorite things that I own, but I never wear it because I keep it for the memories. So I guess you could call that my wedding dress. So yeah, I have so many of those in that bag. They're all different memories of different times I went to shows, and I just love to reminisce on it. Nostalgia is an extremely, extremely powerful emotion and a great motivator for people to actually spend money and buy clothes. When I used to go to shows super often, I would literally like set aside some money so that I could buy merch because I wanted to be able to remember that moment in time for me. I wanted to buy merch to commemorate a memory. Another piece of clothing that carries a lot of meaning for me is going to be this jacket right here. This is a Patagonia Retro X jacket in gray and black. I love this thing to death. It is one of my favorite jackets, and the meaning that it carries is that this is the jacket that on my YouTube channel was probably the most successful video that I've ever done up to this point. For me, that's a badge of honor. I'm really proud of that video. I'm really proud of what my channel has been able to become because of reviewing this jacket, and it's something that I want to keep in my wardrobe forever because it shows probably one of my most successful endeavors outside of what I do for my day job. And that means a ton to me. Let's dial it all back, bring it back down to earth. The question that I wanted to answer while thinking about this video is this healthy? Is it somehow detrimental in any way to assign meaning and have a deeper connection with your clothing? And in some ways, yes and no. It's not a very satisfying answer, unfortunately, but I think that intrinsically there's a lot of benefit in realizing the meaning of clothing you buy. It can justify certain purchases made because you're no longer just buying a product, but you're attached to a message, you're attached to a story, you're attached to some other aspect of this clothing, thus justifying you spending money on it. But at the same time, finding justification for your purchases may perpetuate unhealthy habits of continuous, unnecessary spending. Well, all in all, the truth of the matter is that the answer is not satisfying. It's up to you, it's your personality, and it's up to you to recognize any unhealthy habits that are a detriment in your life. For me, creating clothing content, doing the things that I do, and indulging in what I love outside of my day job is really a saving grace for me. I love doing this particular thing. Like, making videos on clothes is such a privilege to be able to do, and I am so excited that I still get to do it, that I still have people that are watching me, and I meet the people that I meet. It is seriously one of the greatest things I've ever done. And yeah, and assigning meaning to clothing is definitely something that I continue to do, I've done for a while, and I think that it would help some people to actually find further and deeper meaning in what they buy and how they dress themselves. Because the better you look, the better you feel, the more confident you are, and I can only say that because that's exactly what it's done for me. That's just about everything that I wanted to talk about in this video. I'm sure after I edit this all together and just read through it again, I'm going to want to add more, but this is kind of the culmination of what I have so far. I'm very curious though. I want to know, do other people also think this way? Do you assign meaning to clothing, whether it's necessary or not, or is it something that I'm just overthinking? Yeah, well, put it down in the comments below or DM it to me on Instagram. I appreciate every single one of you guys who watches any of my videos, and yeah, can't thank you guys enough. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.